Good morning, everybody. This is Diggs. It's another beautiful day out here in the Pacific Northwest, and today I put together what I'm going to call the ultimate Diggs guide to cooking. It's going to be my cookbook, and hopefully this is going to clear up some of the confusion around the cooking event. We're going to go through it very methodically, talk about the different ingredients, why they exist, what modifies them. They did release as well a special event to release cooking guides, and you can kind of leave comments and emojis for a winner on the official forums. I am going to post this there if you guys could go and support me. That'll be in the description and in the first comment. Let's go ahead though and dig in. So the first thing we're going to talk about is right at the beginning of the event, before you even jump in. Maybe some of you are getting ready to do this right now, but there are a couple of things you're going to want to consider. You're going to want to craft and eat the Golden Grove mushrooms for increased drop rate. This is going to give you increased drop rate for the witch event when you're actually fighting the witch, which will give you increased food bundles here on the top left. So this is going to be very important, be the first thing you do before you get into the event. You will be able to HQ them later, but for your first couple of rounds with the witch, just get in there, craft this real quick before you go, and go ahead and kind of bust those fights out. Now, there are two buffs that you can get from the cauldron, which will help you. One of them being super important is going to be the level 3 dish, super success rate. This is going to be on the level 2, and it is going to increase super success rate by 60%. So if you're doing a lot of crafting or you're planning on doing a lot of crafting, you may want to wait until you can actually access this super dish success rate, because it's going to give you a lot more HQ food. HQ food gives a lot more favor, or gives a little bit more favor. It gives a lot better gathering for you, better drops. It's just way awesome to grab. Now, the second ability is on tier 3. Honestly, I don't think you need this, but this ability is going to obtain 1 additional pearl clam when you're gathering. It's something you can just think about. I don't think it's going to make a huge difference. Now, talking about the ingredients that are available, there is a lot of ingredients that are going on right now, and a lot of people are really confused about the ingredients and don't really understand what modifies what. So what I've done here is I've just put all of the ingredients clear as day for everybody to see. So part of the confusion I think that everybody has is that the familiar forest ingredients, which are permanent, got added as the same time as the witch's ingredients, which are temporary. So a lot of times you see these, cooking events, and they're rolled out separately, perhaps in other regions, but rolling them out together was a little bit confusing for people and overwhelming. So it is important to note that there is a familiar forest category for ingredients and a witch's ingredients category that are available while the event is going. What makes this a little bit more confusing is you can gather them in the same place. For example, the herbs, the green herbs from the familiar forest ingredients right here, are gathered from the same place as the old herbs. And so a lot of people are kind of like, what's the difference? What do I need to know? And the reality is you don't really need to know much. Just make sure that you're getting the right ingredient and you're using food to increase drop rate for the right ingredient as well. Talking about that, right here you have dumplings. So dumplings are going to give +1 to +2 for gathering for witch's ingredients. Right here, this is what they look like. And then tacos give +1 to 2 to pluff meat. Skewers give +1 to 2 to gold leaf and green herbs. This is going to be for the familiar forest, but they don't buff with each other. So the witch's ingredients are exclusively buffed by just dumplings. So if you're only wanting to do the witch's event right now, which a lot of people are, you only need to worry about eating dumplings. If you are farming for your familiar forest event and you want to get maybe, ingredients so that you can get the NPCs to work on your farm, you will need to use these as well. Now, they don't stack cumulatively unlike the witch's materials, but if you are gathering and you want to get both, you're going to need to eat 1 of each. So keep that in mind depending on what you're gathering, what you're doing. You want to be optimal. Of course, you're going to eat 1 of each so that you're gathering both the witch's ingredients and you're gathering familiar forest ingredients. But really, the familiar forest ingredients are so much more common than the witch's ingredients. So just no matter what, make sure you're eating a dumpling before you go gather. Now, when you are heading out to gather, there are 4 different regions that you can gather in. You can get the meat over here in the Southern Heartlands. You can get the petals in the Golden Grove. You can get the herb in the Serene Forest, and you can get the clams in the Eastern Heartland. Now, there are 2 items here for the Witches event, which are only able to be gotten from the shop or the basket. That's going to be coffee beans and cubed ice. These are really important items because they give you a really good food item, which we will talk about here in a second. Looking at all the different recipes, you're probably wondering, what do I do with all of these? What do I craft? Which ones are good? And we're gonna go through all of the recipes here and talk about what specifically they do, what their requirements are, and how many you may want to potentially craft. Now, starting off here, we do have the top of the list, which is going to be the fruit basket. It's going to have mushrooms and petals. This is going to be the item that increases the witch food drop rate. I'm going to say you need a couple of these. You will definitely be using this as a favor item, so you'll want to craft maybe about 20 in total. Dumplings are probably your most important, as I talked about before. This is going to increase your witch food gathering plus 1 to 2. Craft this before you gather. It does take flour, so keep that in mind. But again, you're only going to really need maybe 30 of these in total. That's accounting for what you're going to be giving to your favor NPC. So you're not going to need a ton, maybe 60 flour in total. And you can either, trade for flour, or you can get it from the picnic baskets that drop right now. Octopus is going to give attack up for Witch's Dungeon. This is going to be a much more important when we do enter in the challenge content. This is also going to be an easy item for favor, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. Now, we get to the more complex ingredients, or the complex recipes, I feel like. And coffee is an interesting one. So coffee is pretty limited in terms of you can only get it from coffee beans. And it does have the benefit of being an actually good food item. However, the turn-in reward for coffee is also really good from the NPC that you would trade it in for favor. So you can use these for favor. So if you want gummies, because that's what the favor NPC gives for these, you can turn these in. Otherwise, you can use them for gold gain, because they give 150 to 300% gold gain for 30 minutes. That's pretty good. So I could see some people prioritizing the gold gain here over the food NPC, because when you give favorite food to your NPCs, that's when you get the item, but you can give non-favorite food to not get the item. And it's only about 10 gummies that you would be missing. So it depends on how much you want the gummies or how much you want the gold gain. Now the fruit down here, the corn and the fruit kind of put together and made pretty easy here, is going to be good for easy favor. If you don't have time to craft all of the special ingredients, if you don't have time to kind of do all of the work that needs to be done, this is going to be really great for you, and it's going to be very good at potentially kind of filling in the gaps, especially for players that don't have much time to play. Now, the apple ice cream down below is limited as well, because it does have the ice cube that's required. This is a feast item that does increase soulstone drop rate, so it's a very important thing to keep in mind, because again, plus 300% soulstone drop rate is pretty good, and you might not actually need the favor item that this trades for. So it might be better just to keep these, and again, trade the corn and the fruit to that NPC for favor instead of actually giving these up to them. Now, talking about favor, every NPC has a favorite food and a least favorite food that you can craft for them, and every NPC has an item that they will give you. Now, again, remember, we are talking specifically right now just about the Witches event. We will talk about the familiar gain for the farm here in just a second. So you can see here that we do have a list of all of the NPCs, and most of this is pretty standard. Dumplings are going to be pretty easy to turn in for favor. The clover guy, going to be really easy because you can craft these relatively simple. But again, you have the coffee guy who is going to have a little bit of a difficult time here because it's gummies. So it's like, do you want gold? Do you want gummies? You're going to have to make a decision here. Another important note with favor is that you can only turn in 40 items every week. So it's going to be very important to, you know, either choose which ones you want to do first or kind of decide how you want to approach this. Octopus guy, I do love turning in Octopus because he does give you items that give you access to specialties. So you can get about 100 specialties from him if you turn things in. Redmayne, very good because you do get mount items. And of course, the corn fruit is just super easy to craft and turn in. But then you have your final guy here who his favorite is going to be the kind of pear ice cream. Dude, it's not worth it for the meat. His meat just isn't worth it. Turn in the corn for him, you know, save him for last. He's not that important. You don't need what he's selling, let me tell you. Now, once you've done all of that, you pretty much have an understanding of how the food system works right now in Ni no Kuni, and particularly for the event. And again, I think it's very important to break things down separately. So now we're going to talk separately about the Familiar Forest event. Now, the Familiar Forest event, the ingredients are gathered as well. You can use the food as well to trade in with Familiar Forest NPCs, and you can bring them to your farm and they will work for you when you do have max familiarity with them. Now, when you have max familiarity, you do have to continue feeding them food in order to build up their energy so that they can continually work for you and come to your farm and do everything that's needed. So most of this food is going to be used just for feeding your NPCs. And you know, you're not going to need a ton of this. You're not going to need a ton of these foods. And I would be careful on filling up your inventory with these because right now I can actually show you on my game here. Let me lower this real quick and put Ni no Kuni up. I can actually show you that my inventory is a little bit bloated with food items right now, and I don't need all of these food items in my inventory, and I definitely overproduced. And then you have the HQ and the NQ in here, so you can see I'm in a situation where my quick buff items here are just getting a little overwhelming to manage. So when you are crafting for your farm and your NPCs, please make sure that you're only crafting the amount that you're going to need, or that you're feeding the leftover to the NPCs. Right now, if you do have the HQ success rate, you're going to be crafting a significant amount of HQs. Don't be afraid to feed them HQs. You're going to be having these guys with you for a very long time. You're going to be using these supplies to refill their energy bars as they tend to your farm. So you're going to want to just slowly get rid of it. All right, everybody, that is the entirety of the guide. There will be a full PDF in the description down below. Please make sure to utilize that and share it with your Discords. And please, everybody, make sure to go and leave a comment and an emoji on my actual post that I post on the official forums for this. I would like to try to get that 5K diamonds, would be awesome. So thank you so much, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.